Bonjour à tous. Good afternoon, everyone. Je m'appelle Edward Greenspon, Président et Directeur Général du Forum des Politiques Publiques, and welcome to Turning Point 2020, when the future work became the present. So we come together this afternoon at a crossroads moment in our history. Our lives have been tossed this way and that in recent months by three concurrent crises. What about health? What about the economy? And what about race, diversity, and inclusion? Obviously, they all interact with the set of issues often referred to as the future work. The COVID crisis has taken matters that appear to be moving in slow motion, such as the state of our unemployment insurance system, treatment of gig workers, demands on post-secondary institutions, and thrown them into hyperdrive. And now we are having conversations going on in workplaces and households across the country about the pervasive presence in our society of systemic racism that have prompted many of us to rethink how we can make our places of employment truly diverse and inclusive. At the Public Policy Forum, we know we need to do more and do better in fighting anti-Black racism and all the myriad manifestations of hate that perpetuate themselves year after year, decade after decade. PPF is committed to addressing racism within our organization and working with policymakers on its dismantling once and for all. PPF's motto is good policy, better Canada. A better Canada cannot be so if it excludes Black Canadians, Indigenous Canadians, Canadians who are trans, disabled Canadians, and the many communities that continue to face systemic barriers and structural inequality. A better Canada must be better across the board. In a better Canada, we acknowledge that PPF, your organizer and host today, has our headquarters on the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. Over the course of this conference, we will be joined by participants and speakers from across the country, and we would encourage everyone to consider the origin of the land on which they find themselves. The website whose.land can be a great resource for learning about the traditional territories on which you live, work, and gather. Wherever that is, PPF is grateful to all Indigenous peoples for the care you have taken with the lands and the waters on behalf of succeeding generations. We extend our friendship, respect, and appreciation. Our purpose today is to continue the public policy conversation around the future work through this, our second Brave New Work conference, and identify pathways going forward. We began on this journey to ensure a broad national discussion of how Canadians can best be prepared for the opportunities that new technologies, businesses, and industries will produce, and to ensure these opportunities will be accessible to all. We also recognized that various harms that technological disruption can cause and wanted to ensure that these downsides are managed and mitigated to protect individuals and avoid the heightened polarization that plagues many other countries. There's a lot of work to be done, a lot of puzzles to solve, a lot of policies to improve, as the COVID crisis has reminded us. When we started working this through, we said that many of our policies were designed for a long gone binary world, one where people were either in work or out of work, in school or done with school, in full retirement, or still in the labor market. Of course, the lines are not drawn so neatly in today's post-binary reality, and policy needs to catch up. We also spoke a lot about what we call the messy middle. When your work life is disrupted 10 or 20 years in by economic and technological change, there isn't an integrated system in place that will ensure you access to the knowledge and instruments to acquire new skills and make smooth adjustments. That's something we are working on now as a country. This messy middle has not disappeared in our current crisis. The demand to reskill and upskill has not subsided. Meanwhile, we have confirmed our concerns that our training and income support systems are in need of major renovation, and that precarious work is indeed precarious. Mid-career isn't the only place where the action is going to be. A year ago, we had the tightest labor markets in history. The young were entering these markets with relative ease. Employers were reaching out to even marginalized communities, like the disabled. Depending on the nature of the recovery, it is a good bet that we have added issues to address, including making sure that youth are not the victims and don't lose years and years in the recovery. So the job of all of us attending the Brave New Work Conference has grown more urgent and more complex. The health crisis compels us to meet virtually. Thus, we have organized sessions over 3 afternoons rather than in a single day. Today is dedicated to discussing whether the future work has arrived early and what that means. And we will discuss the very important subject of race and the future work. Tomorrow afternoon, we will explore barriers to work for different groups and the place of gig work in the post-pandemic world. And finally, on Thursday, we'll be looking for the bright side a bit, along with the challenges and what it looks like to seize the controls of the future. This new virtual hallway has no fire code limits on how many people can be in it at any given time. So please invite your friends and colleagues to join this afternoon or Wednesday and Thursday. The goal of Brave New Work is simple: to help decision makers in government, industry, unions, the learning and training sectors, and among individuals themselves to organize and optimize policy choices and individual choices for a more secure, satisfying, and productive future. The future work is too important to be left to chance. We must shape it to our wishes, or we risk getting run over by it. Now, as you know, PPF isn't your average think tank. Our most recent strategy sets out a goal for us to be the think tank about tomorrow, and tomorrow has arrived. We mix research and dialogue and bring forward fresh applied policy options. Today, we convene in the spirit of our inclusion to conclusion methodology, bringing people of different perspectives together to come up with shared pathways that serve the public good. Our 3 most recent Brave New Work research reports were released yesterday. I urge you to read them. One is by Sean Spear and Wasim Ahmad, called A Place-Based Lens to the Future of Work in Canada, looking at the critical urban-rural or metropolitan hinterland divide, what's similar and what's different. We also have a report released yesterday by Sunil Johal, The Future is Now, Creating Decent Work Post-Pandemic, about the challenges facing Canadians in accessing good work. Sunil will be a panelist on day 2 as we explore the future of gig work. And thirdly, Arvind Gupta and AJ Tabando, we released their report called Emerging Stronger, Addressing the Skills Underutilization Challenge for the Future of Work in Canada, in which they set out to bust some myths about the skill gap and propose new ways to overcome hiring bias, especially in tech. I want to take a moment to thank our lead sponsor, TD Bank Group. We'll hear from 2 of their senior leaders in a while. And I want to thank our supporting sponsors, the Business Council of Canada, the Government of Canada, including the Departments of Employment and Social Development Canada, who we will hear from on day 3, the Canadian Bankers Association, Cogeco, Deloitte, who will share some of their research on gig workers with us tomorrow, General Motors, the Metcalf Foundation, Unifor, who will share their insights with us on day 2 as well, the Diversity Institute and the Future Skills Center, whose executive director will also be on hand tomorrow. Without these partners, this project and this conference would not have been possible. So again, I thank them, and I also want to thank the PPF team working on this conference. On March 12th, we said this was going to be a period of business as unusual. And it has. And we've changed so much over the past 3 months, and so much of it for the better. All organizations are being tested in their abilities to innovate and adapt. I'm proud of the job that the PPF team has done. So, on with the program. I want to introduce our next speaker, Nori Campbell, who is a lawyer by training and currently the group head and general counsel at TD Bank Group. She joined the bank in 2000 and was named to the bank's senior executive team in 2013. She was named one of Canada's top 40 under 40 in 2011 and recognized as one of Canada's most powerful women by the Women's Executive Network. Nori is the chair of TD's enterprise-wide Inclusion and Diversity Leadership Council. Nori has pre-recorded her welcoming remarks, which amount to more than welcoming remarks. She takes us inside the task of reinventing TD on the fly in this extraordinary time of pandemic, what it's like to walk the talk at one of Canada's great corporate institutions. We're grateful for Nori's keen interest in the kinds of issues we'll be exploring over the next 3 days. Following Nori's remarks, PPF's fellow in residence, Sean Spear, will take the stage as we dive into the macro trends of this pandemic with Nori's colleague, Beata Caranci. So take it away, Nori. Thank you.